The Silent Princess and the Wolf King. Some women sacrifice everything for love, but Alara sacrificed her voice for something deeper. The lives of her 5 brothers, cursed to live as wolves. For 7 years, she scrubbed floors in the palace of the Wolf King, invisible, silent, watching the man she loved from the shadows, knowing he could never see her, knowing she could never speak his name. But when a dark queen arrives with poison on her lips and death in her eyes, Alara must choose. Keep her vow of silence and watch him die, or break it and doom her brothers forever. This is not a fairy tale. This is a story of wolves and witches, of curses and claiming, of a woman who gave up everything, and the king who never knew her name. Chapter 1. The Wolf King's Garden. Moonlight turned the Edinburgh Palace gardens silver. Alara moved between the monkshood flowers, their purple blooms deadly beautiful in the darkness. 7 years of midnight harvests had taught her to be patient, to endure the burning sap on her fingers without complaint. Music drifted from the ballroom where nobles celebrated the king's return from the northern wars. The guards lingered by windows, drawn to the spectacle, which meant the gardens were blessedly empty. Alara filled her leather pouch with the toxic blooms, each one a thread in the tapestry of her brother's salvation. 4 shirts completed, 1 nearly finished. Just 6 more months of silence, and they'll be free. A twig snapped. Alara froze, melting into shadow behind a topiary. Footsteps approached, unhurried, confident. The stride of someone who owned every stone in this palace. When he rounded the hedge, moonlight caught his face. Connor Thornwood, the Wolf King of Edinburgh. Strong jaw, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, eyes that gleamed amber in the darkness. He walked alone, seeking peace in the only place he seemed to find it. Alara had learned his patterns in 7 years of silent watching. The furrow between his brows when border troubles weighed on him, the way his shoulders relaxed among the roses, the rare smile he offered to children in the courtyard. She'd fallen in love with him slowly, helplessly. Not with his crown, but with the man who carried it like a burden he never asked for. Her wolf stirred inside, pressing against her consciousness. Mate, it whispered, as it had for 7 years. Mine. But he could never be hers. Not while her brothers remained cursed. Not while silence bound her. Your Majesty. A new voice shattered the moment. Lord Brennan appeared, elaborately dressed. The Queen is eager to discuss the alliance. I'm certain she can wait a few moments, Connor said without turning, irritation creeping into his tone. She's most interested in the proposed union. The council believes such a marriage would bring unprecedented prosperity. Alara's heart stuttered. Marriage. You speak of it like a trade agreement, Connor said flatly. Duty often requires personal sacrifice, sire. The king sighed. I'm well acquainted with duty, old friend. Pain crashed through Alara's chest. Someone else would stand at his side. Someone else would know his thoughts, his touch, his smile. She had always known this day would come, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. The Queen is beautiful, Brennan pressed. Her kingdom's resources would complement ours perfectly. I'm aware. I'm also aware of the rumors about her previous marriages. Alara leaned forward, straining to hear. Rumors only, sire. Her first husband died in the rebellion 7 years ago. The others, powerful men, often have enemies. 3 husbands, all dead within a year of marriage, Connor mused. Perhaps I should be flattered. A chill crept down Alara's spine. 3 husbands. Could this queen be? No. Why would Morgana come here? The council asks only that you speak with her. Perhaps you'll find her agreeable. Connor stared at the moon. My wolf is restless tonight, like it's searching for something I cannot name. Alara's wolf whined in response, straining toward him. Perhaps what it seeks awaits you in the ballroom, Brennan suggested. Connor's laugh held no humor. Perhaps. Very well, let us return. As they turned, a breeze stirred the garden. Connor paused, nostrils flaring. Do you smell that? The gardens are full of strange plants, sire. For one terrifying moment, Connor's gaze swept over Alara's hiding place. His amber eyes seemed to pierce the dark. Then the moment passed. He shook his head and followed Brennan. Alara waited until their footsteps faded. She should return to the servants' quarters, continue weaving, forget what she'd heard. But something pulled her toward the palace. A desperate need to see this queen who might claim what Alara's heart insisted was hers. She slipped through the servants' entrance. The ballroom blazed with candlelight, jewels glittering on silk gowns. At the far end stood Connor, regal and composed. And beside him, Alara's blood turned to ice. Tall, ageless, with silver-white hair arranged in an elaborate crown. The woman moved with absolute confidence, her beauty as cold and perfect as Alara remembered. Lady Morgana, Queen of Ravencrest. The witch who had cursed her brothers. The woman who had murdered her father and stolen their throne. And now she stood beside Connor, crimson-tipped fingers resting on his arm, painted lips curved in a smile that promised ruin. Chapter 2: Shadows and Silence. Alara pressed into an alcove behind a tapestry, heart pounding. 7 years ago, she'd watched from behind similar curtains as Morgana charmed her way into her father's court. King Edward of Ravencrest had been strong and vibrant before Morgana's arrival. Alara had been only 9, but she remembered his laughter, the way he'd scoop her into his arms. Then came Morgana with her bewitching smile and magical potions. Within weeks of their marriage, father changed. His eyes grew distant, vacant. He no longer recognized his children. The court whispered about grief for his late queen, but Alara's eldest brother Garrett suspected darker forces. She's draining him, Garrett had whispered one night, feeding on his life to strengthen her magic. They'd planned to confront Morgana, but never got the chance. One night, her youngest brother Thomas burst into her chamber. Father is dead. Morgana claims we poisoned him. The guards are coming. They fled into the forests. For 3 years they lived as fugitives, moving constantly to stay ahead of Morgana's hunters. Then the witch's hunters finally caught them. Alara closed her eyes against the memory, the clearing lit by witch fire, her brothers shifting to wolf form to protect her. Morgana's cruel laughter as she cast her curse. Let your beast forms become your prison, Morgana had proclaimed, silver light enveloping the 5 princes. Let your human minds watch helplessly from within. Only Alara had escaped, hidden beneath leaves, by Thomas's quick thinking. She'd lain motionless as Morgana declared the princess surely dead, her brothers now mindless beasts to be hunted. That night, her grandmother's spirit came in a dream, revealing the cure. 5 shirts woven from monkshood. Complete silence until all are finished. This alone will break the curse. Alara had wandered for months until she learned of King Connor's famous gardens. Taking a position in his kitchens had been salvation, abundant monkshood, and the safety of anonymity. Now, watching Morgana circle Connor like a predator, Alara recognized the pattern. Was Ravencrest no longer enough? Did Morgana now desire Edinburgh, seeking to add Connor's kingdom through marriage before disposing of him? The thought of Connor's strength fading made Alara physically ill. She should warn him. But how? She'd never learned to read or write, her education cut short at 9. Even if she broke her vow, would a king believe a mute servant? And Morgana would recognize her, instantly, would silence her permanently. As the night wore on, Connor grew increasingly weary. Finally, he made his excuses. I must retire. Tomorrow's negotiations require a clear mind. Morgana's lips formed a disappointed pout. Connor bowed formally over her hand, not quite kissing it, Alara noted, before departing. The moment he was gone, Morgana's charming smile vanished, replaced by cold calculation. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on a servant carrying wine goblets. Irene, a quiet girl who worked the upper floors. Alara watched as Morgana beckoned her. They spoke briefly, then with practiced sleight of hand, the witch pressed something into Irene's palm. A vial and gold coins, both disappearing into the girl's pocket. Instinct prickled along Alara's spine. When Irene slipped away through a side door, Alara followed. The servant corridors were mostly empty. Alara kept to shadows as she tracked Irene through winding halls. To her surprise, Irene didn't head toward the kitchens but up the grand staircase toward the royal wing. Alara's heart pounded. Following meant leaving safety. But something was wrong. She felt it. At the top, she glimpsed Irene turning toward the king's private chambers. Alara's breath caught. The king's rooms. Right after speaking with Morgana. She grabbed a tray of fruit and hurried forward. "Another refreshment for His Majesty?" a guard asked, raising an eyebrow. Alara nodded, gesturing toward Irene. "Very well. Don't linger." The king's study was spacious, firelight casting warm shadows. Maps and books lined the shelves. And there, seated before the fire, was Connor. He'd changed from formal attire into a loose white shirt, his collar open. The firelight gilded his skin, outlining the strong lines of his face. He looked younger, more human. Alara's throat went dry. In 7 years, she'd never seen him like this. Her wolf stirred. "Mate, ours." "Your evening wine, Your Majesty," Irene said, curtsying. "Just set it there," Connor said distractedly. "Thank you." As Irene placed the goblet, Alara saw her tip the vial's contents into the wine with a flick of her wrist. The liquid shimmered briefly, then settled. "Will there be anything else?" "No, that will be all." As Irene turned to leave, she noticed Alara. Her eyes narrowed. Connor's hand reached for the goblet. Without thinking, Alara moved. Her sleeve brushed the glass. It tipped, spilling across the table, red wine blooming like blood. Connor bolted upright. Alara froze. Then he looked at her. Really looked. Time slowed. The crackling fire, Irene's gasp, all faded as their eyes met and held. Bewilderment crossed his face, followed by something deeper, more primal. His pupils dilated, amber irises darkening to molten gold. Alara couldn't breathe. 7 years of yearning crystallized into this single, impossible moment. "I'll fetch cloths immediately, Your Majesty," Irene stammered from somewhere far away. Connor gave no sign he'd heard. Instead, he took a step toward Alara, then another, drawn by something beyond conscious thought. "Who are you?" he breathed, wonder filling his voice. Alara's lips parted. 7 years of stored words rushed to the surface. "Yours," her heart cried. "I'm yours." For one dangerous moment, she nearly broke her vow. Nearly sacrificed her brothers for the chance to answer him. Horror washed over her. 4 shirts completed. The vow still stands. 6 more months of silence required. With a strangled gasp, Alara whirled and fled, his voice calling after her, her heart pounding wildly. Chapter 3. The King's Command. Alara hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those amber eyes turning gold, heard his voice. "Who are you?" Dawn found her curled by the window, clutching the nearly finished 5th shirt. The monk's hood fibers burned her skin, but the pain was nothing compared to the storm inside. She was being foolish. He wouldn't remember her. She was no one. What mattered was keeping Morgana, away from Connor. The potion in the wine made the witch's intent clear. But how could a mute servant protect a king? She tucked the shirt beneath her mattress and prepared for the day, slipping into her place in the bustling kitchen. She kept her head down, chopping vegetables with practiced speed. "More ginger in the porridge," the head cook barked. "His Majesty requested it." Alara allowed herself a quiet smile. Connor always asked for more ginger when the weather cooled. One of many tiny details she'd collected. The familiar chaos enveloped her. Steam, clattering pots, shouted orders. Then everything stopped. The silence hit like a dropped plate. Alara froze, her knife suspended mid-chop. "Your Majesty," the head cook stammered, wiping his hands as he bowed. Alara's heart lurched. Slowly, she turned. King Connor Thornwood stood in the doorway. No crown, no armor. Just a dark tunic and quiet authority. Lord Brennan flanked him, looking stunned. "Please, continue your work," Connor said. "I don't wish to disrupt preparations." The kitchen came back to life with stiff, self-conscious movements. Alara ducked her head and resumed chopping, hands trembling. "Please don't see me. Please don't remember." She felt him moving closer, his presence unmistakable. The head cook guided him through the stations. "And here we prepare the morning vegetables, Your Majesty." He was directly behind her now. "Ah," Connor said. "There you are." The certainty in his tone was a blow. Alara's shoulders tensed. She didn't lift her head. "You're the girl from last night." The room went still again. "Your Majesty," the cook said nervously. "Has this girl caused offense?" "No offense." Connor stepped closer. Alara gripped the knife tighter. "Look at me!" She resisted, forcing herself to keep chopping. His fingers brushed beneath her chin, gentle but firm, lifting her face. Up close, she saw every detail. The gold flecks in his amber eyes, the faint scar above his brow, the softness in his expression. No royal mask, just curiosity and something deeper. "You never told me your name," he said softly. Her lips parted. The need to answer rose fast. She bit her cheek to stop it. "She can't tell you, Your Majesty," the cook interjected. "The girl is mute. Has been since she came 8 years ago." Connor didn't look away. "Is that so?" "She's a simple girl, but a hard worker. Never causes trouble." "And what do you call her?" "Well, the staff calls her Star, Your Majesty. She's always looking at the stars." "Star." His thumb grazed her jaw before lowering his hand. "From today, Star will serve as my personal attendant." Gasps rippled through the room. "See that her things are moved to appropriate quarters near my chambers." The cook bowed. "As you wish, Your Majesty." Connor looked at Alara one last time. "Until this afternoon, Star." Then he was gone, leaving silence and stares. Alara stood frozen, knife in hand, as everything she'd worked to keep hidden began to unravel. Chapter 4. Stolen Moments. The royal chambers were grander than Alara had imagined. As Connor's attendant, she now had access to spaces few servants entered. Most daunting of all, his bedchamber. "Your Majesty, this is highly irregular," Lord Brennan said, casting Alara a wary glance. "A personal attendant should be trained, experienced." "Star has served here 8 years," Connor replied without looking up. "But she's mute. How will she announce visitors?" "I find silence refreshing." Brennan sighed in defeat, bowing stiffly before leaving them alone. Connor kept reading, content to let her stand in silence. His scent wrapped around her, stirring her wolf. At last, he set the papers aside. "Are you afraid of me, little Star?" She shook her head. "Then what troubles you? You're trembling." She forced stillness into her limbs as he approached. "Look at me." It took all her courage, but she met his eyes. "There," he murmured. "I was beginning to think I'd imagined it." She tilted her head slightly. "That feeling when our eyes meet, you feel it too, don't you?" After a moment, she gave the smallest nod. "Good. At least I'm not going mad." The first week passed in a blur. Alara quickly learned his rhythms and discovered an advantage. She could guard his food from tampering inspecting every dish for enchantments, poison, the faint shimmer of magic. But something else grew dangerous, the tension between them. It began with his eyes following her movements, darkening when she leaned close to pour wine. Then came casual touches, fingers grazing when she handed him documents, a brush of his shoulder beside hers. By the third week, the evening ritual of helping him undress became exquisite torture. She would stand before him, hands trembling as she unfastened his jacket, avoiding his gaze though she felt its heat. "The shirt too, Star," he'd say, voice dropping. One night, as she reached for his shirt, his hand caught her wrist. "Have dinner with me, not as my servant, as my guest." Against her better judgment, she met his gaze. Hunger burned in it. That night they dined alone. Candlelight softened the space. He insisted she sit across from him, watching with quiet pleasure as she tasted food she usually served. When she rose to clear plates, he caught her hand. "Leave them, sit with me by the fire." She obeyed, heart pounding. His knee nearly brushed hers. His scent made her wolf stir. "When you're not with me," he murmured, "I find myself watching the door, waiting. And when you're near..." His voice dropped lower. "All I can think about is having you closer still." His thumb brushed across her mouth where a drop of wine clung. These nights became ritual. Each evening the space between them narrowed. Some nights his hand found hers in the firelight. Others he tucked hair behind her ear, fingertips lingering. Alara tried to stay grounded, reminding herself why she was here, to protect him, to finish her brother's shirts, to remain hidden. But each night he looked at her like she was his entire world. Her resolve crumbled a little more. "You're avoiding me," Connor said one evening after she'd deliberately kept distance throughout dinner. She shook her head, busying herself with straightening books. "Liar!" His tone held no accusation, only heated awareness. "Every time I come near, you find a reason to move away. Why?" She kept her back to him, hands trembling. "Little Star?" The way he said it, rough, almost desperate, made her breath catch. "Please look at me." She couldn't refuse. Slowly she turned, pressing against the bookshelf. "There's something between us," he said. "From the moment I first saw you, something inside me changed. I dream of you. I sense you even when you're not near." His voice dropped to a whisper. "It's as though part of my soul has always been yours." Alara's chest tightened. Her wolf pressed forward, whining. "Mate. Mine." "You feel it too," he continued, bracing one arm beside her. "Head." His gaze dropped to her lips, lingered with naked hunger. "Why do you fight it?" "Because I can't be yours. Because Morgana would destroy you if she knew who I am. Because my brothers' lives depend on my silence." But she could say none of this. His free hand rose to her face. Her eyes fluttered closed. A small sound, not quite a whimper, not quite a sigh, escaped her throat. "Don't," he whispered, breath warm against her lips. "Don't close your eyes." Slowly, giving her every chance to retreat, he lowered his mouth to hers. Fire raced through Alara's veins as his lips found hers. Gentle at first, then everything at once. His body pressed against her, too close, and yet she needed him closer still. When they finally broke apart, Connor rested his forehead against hers, breathing ragged. "Star," he breathed. Alara trembled in his embrace, joy and despair warring within. This was everything she'd dreamed of, and everything she couldn't truly have until her vow was complete. As he drew her in for another kiss, fingers tangling in her hair, Alara knew she was lost. 6 more months suddenly seemed an eternity. Chapter 5. The Breaking Point. Candlelight flickered across Connor's face as he traced slow circles on Alara's palm. In moments like this, she could simply be a woman loved by a man. By day, they kept distance. She was only his silent attendant. But Morgana, now a frequent guest at court, paid her little attention. Just another servant. Yet the witch's calculating smiles reserved for Connor made Alara's skin crawl. "What troubles you?" Connor asked, sensing tension. "Your thoughts seem far away." She shook her head and nestled closer. Even if she could speak, how could she explain that the woman courting him had destroyed her family? Later, once he'd drifted to sleep, Alara slipped through the secret passage to the servants' wing. Instead of returning to her quarters, she made for the kitchens and out the back entrance. The last shirt was nearly finished. She needed more monkshood. The forest greeted her like an old friend. At the familiar clearing, she waited. A low, melodic howl answered. They emerged from trees like shadows made flesh. 5 wolves larger than any natural beast. At their head, a silver-streaked wolf moved with quiet authority. Garrett. Alara dropped to her knees, arms wide. Her eldest brother pressed his head to her shoulder with a soft whine. The others surrounded her, nuzzling with joy. Thomas, the smallest, danced circles before proudly showing her the fresh monkshood they'd found. Tears stung her eyes as she buried her hands in their fur. She settled at the base of an oak and worked by moonlight, her brothers forming a protective ring. Only when dawn's first light touched the horizon did she stop, the last sleeve nearly finished. With reluctance, she packed up. She had to return before Connor woke. But when she reached the royal wing, guards stood posted outside his chambers. "Star!" Leora, a kitchen girl, rushed toward her. "The king's been looking everywhere. He came to the kitchens himself at dawn." Alara's stomach twisted. The guards let her pass. Inside, Connor stood by the window, hair tousled. He turned at her entrance, relief flooding his face. "Where have you been?" he asked softly, crossing to her. "I woke and you were gone." She lowered her eyes. "Star." Her name was a plea. "I imagined the worst. That you'd been taken, hurt, that you'd left." She shook her head, meeting his eyes. "Never." "Then where? What secret calls you away from me?" Exhaustion and guilt crashed over her. The room blurred. She swayed. Then darkness took her. "Simply exhaustion, Your Majesty," the physician said. "Rest will cure it." "You're certain?" "Quite certain. Several days of complete rest." The bed dipped as Connor sat beside her. "Rest now. I'll be here when you wake." Alara slipped into sleep. When she stirred again, warm light filled the room. Connor's voice drifted nearby. "I never understood the old tales of mate bonds," he said softly. "My father called them romantic nonsense." A quiet laugh. He'd be appalled to see his son so thoroughly ensnared. She stayed still, afraid to break the spell. "From the moment I truly saw you, something changed, like a missing piece finally returned." His thumb brushed her wrist. "I think you're my mate, Star. My wolf has never responded to anyone like it does to you." Her heart pounded. "I want you to be mine, not just in stolen moments, but before the world." His voice grew certain. "When you're well, I intend to ask you properly, to offer you my heart, my crown, my life." A soft kiss pressed to her hand. "Until then, rest and heal, my Star." A week passed. Alara returned to duties, though Connor watched her closely. She worked on the shirt in stolen moments. Then came the evening she'd been dreading. Connor dismissed his advisors early and asked for a private dinner. When the meal was cleared, he offered his hand. "Walk with me." He led her to the royal gardens, to the patch where monkshood grew silver in moonlight. "Do you remember the first time I truly saw you?" he asked. "Before you, I was only a king. But now?" He breathed deeply. "Now I cannot imagine life without you." Her heart raced. She knew what was coming. He dropped to one knee. "My wolf has chosen you. My heart has chosen you. I wish for you to become my queen, my mate, my everything." Tears clouded Alara's vision. She wanted to say yes. Gods, how she yearned to throw herself into his arms. But Morgana's eyes flashed in her memory, followed by images of her brothers trapped in wolf form. If she accepted now, became his queen, Morgana would recognize her. Connor would be caught in the crossfire, perhaps falling to the same fate as her father. With her heart shattering, Alara gently withdrew her hands. Confusion crossed his features. "You cannot mean this." She stepped back, shaking her head. "Why?" His voice was raw. "I know you care. For me. I know you feel this bond." She pointed away, toward duty, sacrifice. "You believe yourself unworthy? I care nothing for lineage." If only he knew. She shook her head desperately. "Please," he whispered, reaching for her. "Whatever burden you carry, we can face it together. Just don't turn away from us." But she stepped out of reach. The hurt in his eyes transformed to resignation. "I see. I was mistaken then." "No," she wanted to cry. "You weren't mistaken. I love you more than I can bear. Forgive me for misunderstanding," he continued. "I won't trouble you with this again." He turned away, shoulders rigid. Alara watched him walk away, her hand rising as if to call him back. 6 more months. Just 6 more months before I can explain. But first she had a shirt to finish, and brothers to save. Duty before love. It had always been so for royalty. Chapter 6. The Witch's Trap. A fortnight passed. Alara had returned to the kitchens, no longer welcome in his chambers. 14 days of aching silence, of stolen glances that carved deeper into her broken heart. Connor had changed. His eyes, once warm amber, were now dull. His face had grown hollow, shadowed with sleepless nights. And Morgana circled him like a hawk. The separation gave Alara time. Each night by candlelight, her fingers flew over monkshood fibers. The 5th shirt was nearly done, just a sleeve left. 2 more nights, maybe. Then came the autumn feast. By cruel fate, Alara was assigned to serve the high table, directly in Connor's line of sight. She'd nearly made it through when he rose, goblet in hand. The hall fell silent. "Esteemed guests," Connor said, voice carrying, "I wish to share joyous news." Something in his tone made Alara look up. His posture was rigid, unnatural. His eyes held an unfamiliar glassy sheen with the faintest hint of silver light at their centers. Alara's blood turned to ice. She knew that look. Her father had worn it before the end. "Queen Morgana of Ravencrest has done me the honor of accepting my proposal of marriage." Gasps rippled through the hall. Morgana rose, triumphant, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "The wedding will take place at the next full moon," Connor continued flatly. The tray slipped from Alara's hands, clattering to the floor. Heads turned. Connor's included. For a moment recognition flickered. Pain. But Morgana's grip tightened, and the light in his eyes dulled. Alara backed toward the servants' exit. "Guards, seize that girl!" Morgana's voice cut through the hall. Alara froze. Guards blocked her path. "This servant is a witch who has been attempting to enchant His Majesty," Morgana declared, pointing with crimson nails. "Only when I arrived did I recognize the signs. I have broken her spell." Murmurs of shock. Hadn't Connor shown strange interest in her? "The king himself confirms it," Morgana insisted. "Is that not so, my love?" Connor didn't flinch. "Yes. I was bewitched." Lord Brennan stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this seems hasty. The girl cannot even speak. How could she cast spells?" "The king confirms it," Morgana said coldly. "Is that not enough?" Connor's gaze remained distant. "Yes. She is a witch." Guards seized Alara, dragging her through familiar halls, down into the dungeon's cold stone belly. A cell door clanged shut. Hours later, footsteps echoed. Morgana entered, smiling. "At last," she said, circling. "The lost princess at my mercy." Alara kept her face blank. "Did you think I wouldn't recognize you? Those silver eyes are unmistakable. I've known since Connor announced me as his guest." She traced Alara's cheek with a crimson nail. "I should have cursed you with your brothers. A mistake I won't repeat." Alara's hands clenched. "Your father made that same face," Morgana mused. "He died calling your name, begging me to spare his children." She turned to the window. Such wasted breath. Alara stepped forward, fury rising. "Oh, does that anger you?" Morgana laughed. "Your mate will suffer the same fate. Already his life force strengthens me. By our wedding night, he'll be little more than a shell." Alara lunged, but froze mid-motion, paralyzed. "You always were impulsive," Morgana chided, releasing the spell. "No discipline." Alara stumbled. "The execution is set for dawn," Morgana said, heading for the door. "A swift beheading. The king insisted. Some final scrap of affection." She turned at the threshold. "Oh, and your brothers will witness your death. I've arranged a hunt. 5 forest wolves captured alive, brought to the execution grounds. Poetic, isn't it?" The door slammed. Alone, Alara collapsed. Dawn. She had until dawn to save them all. Her fingers slipped into her dress's hidden pocket, drawing out the nearly finished 5th shirt. Monk's hood threads glowed faintly. She glanced at the barred window. The full moon would rise in 3 days, Morgana's wedding night. With trembling hands, Alara began to weave. Chapter 7. The Breaking of Curses Dawn bathed Edinburgh Palace in gold and crimson. Alara stood on the execution platform, hands bound, clutching a cloth sack. Inside were 5 completed monk's hood shirts, her final request granted by a careless guard. A crowd gathered, nobles in velvet, servants in linen, hungry to witness the execution. Alara searched for the only ones who mattered. There, at the square's edge, 5 oversized wolves strained within iron-barred cages, eyes locked on her with anguished recognition. Garrett hurled himself against bars, silver-streaked fur streaked with blood. Morgana sat poised in midnight blue, a silver circlet on her brow. Beside her, Connor slumped, eyes dull with silver light, skin pale, movement sluggish. "Starr, servant of Edinburgh Palace, has been found guilty of witchcraft," a herald boomed. "The sentence is death." The executioner approached with an axe. "Have you final words?" The herald sneered. "Oh, I forget. You cannot speak." Morgana laughed. "How fortunate. Witch's curse." With dying breath. Alara heard none of it. Her focus stayed on her brothers and Connor. Guards moved forward to force her to her knees. A tremendous crash erupted. Iron bars buckled. The crowd gasped as 5 enormous wolves surged free, bounding toward the platform. "Stop them!" Morgana shrieked. "Archers!" Alara broke her bonds with sudden strength. She upended the sack. 5 monk's hood shirts unfurled into air like falling stars. TXT copy. As the shirts fell through the air, time seemed to slow. Each garment found its mark, landing perfectly over each charging wolf. Silver light exploded outward, blinding the crowd. When it faded, 5 men stood where wolves had been. Naked, scarred, but unmistakably human. Garrett, tall and silver-haired, stood at their center. Thomas, the youngest, swayed on unsteady legs. Between them, Marcus, William, and Sebastian blinked in the dawn light, tears streaming down their faces. "Brothers," Garrett said, his voice hoarse from 7 years of silence. He looked at his hands, flexing fingers he'd thought lost forever. "We're free." "Impossible," Morgana shrieked, rising from her seat. "The curse cannot be broken. I made certain." "You made certain of nothing," Garrett said, turning to face her. his voice carried across the square with royal authority. "I am Prince Garrett of Ravencrest, and I have returned to reclaim what you stole." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Morgana's face contorted with rage. "Seize them!" she commanded. "They are imposters!" But the guards hesitated, staring at the 5 princes who bore the unmistakable features of House Ravencrest. "Look at me, witch!" Garrett commanded, striding forward despite his nakedness. "You murdered our father. You cursed us to live as beasts. You stole our kingdom." He pointed at Alara. "And now you seek to murder our sister, Princess Alara of Ravencrest." All eyes turned to Alara. "Princess?" Connor's voice was rough, confused. The silver light in his eyes flickered. "She's no princess," Morgana spat. "She's a mute servant. She gave up her voice to save us," Thomas interrupted, his young voice trembling with emotion. 7 years of silence. 7 years of weaving those cursed shirts while working as a servant. All to break your curse. Connor staggered to his feet, fighting against Morgana's enchantment. "Ilara?" The sound of her true name on his lips shattered something inside her. Alara's mouth opened, and for the first time in 7 years, words came. "Connor." Her voice was raspy, unused, but it was hers. "My king." The words broke the final seal. Power surged through Alara, not the borrowed magic of witchcraft, but something older. Her grandmother's blessing, held in reserve all these years, flooded her veins. Her skin began to glow silver. Her eyes, once violet, blazed with ancient light. "No!" Morgana realized too late what was happening. The grandmother's protection was waiting for the curse to break, Ilara said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Waiting for me to fulfill my vow." She turned to Morgana, and 7 years of rage and grief poured out. "You murdered my father. You cursed my brothers. You sought to steal my mate." Silver light coalesced in her hands. "No more." Morgana threw up a defensive spell, but Alara's power, fueled by sacrifice and love, shattered it like glass. The witch stumbled backward. "Guards!" Morgana screamed. "Kill her! I command you!" But her spell on Connor had weakened. The silver light in his eyes flickered, then died. He blinked, awareness returning in a rush. "What?" He looked around confused. Then his gaze found Morgana. Memory flooded back. Her enchantment, the false proposal, watching helplessly as she ordered Alara's execution. A growl built in his chest. His eyes flashed pure gold as his wolf surged forward. "You dared!" he snarled, his voice deepening with his wolf's rage. "You dared touch what is mine!" He shifted mid-stride. A massive wolf, twice the size of Alara's brothers, black as midnight with eyes like molten gold, landed between Morgana and Alara. Morgana backed away, fear finally cracking her composure. "I am a queen. You cannot." "You are a murderer and a usurper," Garrett said coldly. He nodded to his brothers. "And you will answer for your crimes." "The Council of Kingdoms will judge you," Sebastian added, stepping forward. "For regicide, for dark magic, for attempted murder of royal heirs." Morgana looked around wildly. Her guards had abandoned her. The crowd watched with hostile eyes. She was alone. "This isn't over," she hissed. Dark smoke began to gather around her. "I will return." Alara raised her hand. "No, you won't." Silver chains of pure light erupted from the ground, wrapping around Morgana. They burned where they touched, nullifying her magic. "These chains were forged by my grandmother," Alara said quietly. "The last moon priestess of Ravencrest. They will hold you." "Until justice is served!" Morgana screamed, thrashing against the bonds, but they held firm. Connor shifted back to human form. Someone had the presence of mind to throw cloaks to the naked men. He wrapped one around himself and strode directly to Alara. "You're a princess," he said, voice raw with emotion. "I am," Alara whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you." You gave up your voice for 7 years. He cupped her face. You suffered in silence. You worked as a servant when you should have been wearing a crown. His thumb brushed her cheek. And even when I offered you everything, you refused because you hadn't yet saved your family. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I wanted to say yes. Every moment of every day I wanted... He kissed her. Not gently, but with 7 years of denied want and newfound understanding. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Ask me again, Alara said. Connor smiled, the first real smile she'd seen in weeks. Princess Alara of... Ravencrest, will you do me the honor of becoming my queen, my mate, my everything? Yes, she said, laughing through tears. Yes, yes, yes. He kissed her again as the crowd erupted in cheers. Epilogue. 6 months later, the joint coronation of Edinburgh and Ravencrest was the grandest celebration in a generation. 2 kingdoms, once separate, now united through the marriage of Connor and Alara. Alara stood in the great cathedral, wearing a gown of silver and white, 2 crowns placed upon her head, 1 for each kingdom. Beside her, Connor wore matching ceremonial armor, his hand never leaving hers. You look terrified, he murmured as they faced the crowd. There are so many people, she whispered back. Even after months of speech, she still preferred quiet. Then look at me. Only me. She did, and as always, the world narrowed to just the 2 of them. The ceremony completed, they emerged to thunderous applause. Her 5 brothers stood at the base of the cathedral, steps, all dressed in royal finery. Garrett, now king of Ravencrest, had chosen to rule their homeland, while Alara and Connor governed Edinburgh. But the kingdoms were no longer separate. They were family. Sister, Garrett said, embracing her. Father would be proud. He would be proud of all of us, Alara said, looking at each of her brothers. We survived. We endured. And we reclaimed what was ours. What happens to Morgana? Thomas asked quietly. The Council of Kingdoms sentenced her to life imprisonment in the Tower of Stones, Connor said. Her magic is bound. She will never hurt anyone again. Alara nodded, satisfied. Not death. That would have been too easy, but a lifetime to contemplate her crimes. That night, alone in their chambers, Connor pulled Alara close. Do you ever regret it? The 7 years you lost? I lost nothing, Alara said firmly. I found you. I saved my brothers. I discovered my own strength. She touched his face. Every moment of suffering led me here. How could I regret that? He kissed her forehead. You are extraordinary. I am yours, she corrected, and that is enough. They stood at the window, looking out over their joined kingdoms. In the distance, wolves howled, not in pain or curse, but in joy and freedom. Alara's wolf answered, and Connor's joined in. Their voices rose together, announcing to the world what everyone already knew. The silent princess had found her voice. The Wolf King had found his mate. And their story was just beginning. The end. But if you would like to know what happened next, Alara and Connor ruled with wisdom and compassion for 50 years. They had 3 children, 2 daughters who inherited their mother's silver eyes, and 1 son who carried his father's gold. Garrett restored Ravencrest to prosperity, marrying a warrior princess from the Eastern Kingdoms. His children played with Alara's in the summers, maintaining the bond between the kingdoms. Thomas became a scholar, writing the definitive history of the curse and its breaking. His book became required reading for all young royals. Marcus, William, and Sebastian each found their paths. Marcus as a general, William as a diplomat, Sebastian as a healer. All married, all had children, all lived long and happy lives. And every year, on the anniversary of the curse breaking, the family gathered in the Edinburgh Gardens, where monkshood still grew. They would tell the story to the younger generation, ensuring it was never forgotten. Not as a tale of suffering, but as a reminder that love endures, that sacrifice matters, and that even in the deepest silence, hope can survive. And in the end, the Silent Princess and the Wolf King proved what the old stories always taught, that true love isn't found in grand gestures or easy choices. It's found in the quiet moments, in the patient waiting, in the willingness to sacrifice everything for those we love. And when that kind of love is returned, when that kind of devotion is matched, then even the darkest curse can be broken. Even the longest silence can end in song, and two souls, meant to be one, will always find their way home.